The auction of souls, the markets of Carathis Prime, reeked of desperation and greed. Marcus Kane pulled his jacket tighter as he walked through the crowded bazaar, trying to ignore the sounds that made his stomach turn. He had come here for supplies, nothing more. His cargo ship, the Star Wanderer, needed new power cells and food rations for the long journey to the Outer Rim colonies. Marcus had spent 10 years as an engineer in the Earth Defense Corps before the war ended. When the colonies declared independence, he found himself without a purpose. Trading between the scattered human settlements paid enough to keep him fed and his ship running. It was honest work, even if it brought him to places like this. Carathis Prime existed in the gray space between civilized worlds and lawless frontier. Here, anything could be bought or sold if you had the credits. Marcus tried to focus on his shopping list as he passed stalls selling exotic weapons, illegal technology, and worse things he preferred not to think about. The sound of a gong echoed across the marketplace, followed by a voice speaking in the trade language. Marcus recognized the announcement. The afternoon auction was beginning. He quickened his pace, wanting to finish his business and leave before the real ugliness started. But curiosity got the better of him. He had heard whispers about what was sold at these auctions, but had never seen one himself. Against his better judgment, he found himself following the crowd toward the auction platform. The sight that greeted him made his blood run cold. Dozens of beings from different worlds stood in metal cages, their wrists and ankles bound with energy shackles that glowed with a sickly yellow light. Men, women, and children from a dozen different species, all reduced to property to be bought and sold. Marcus felt sick. He had fought in wars, seen death and destruction, but this was different. This was calculated cruelty designed to break the spirit as much as the body. He turned to leave, but a voice stopped him. "Buy my chains and break them, please." The voice rang out clear and strong across the auction yard. Marcus turned back to see a woman standing tall in one of the cages. She was unlike any being he had ever seen. Her skin was a pale blue-green, like sea foam, and her hair was silver white, falling past her shoulders. Her eyes were a deep purple, and they were looking directly at him. "I will give you strong children," she continued, her voice carrying despite the murmur of the crowd. "I will fight for you, work for you, serve you faithfully. Just please, do not leave me here." The auction master, a fat creature with too many arms, raised his voice. "Lot 43, a Zephyrian female. These creatures are rare since their homeworld was conquered. Strong, intelligent, and highly adaptable. Bidding starts at 5,000 credits." Marcus felt his heart pounding. The woman's eyes never left. His face, there was desperation there, but also dignity. She was not begging. She was making an offer, warrior to warrior. 6,000, came a voice from the crowd. Marcus turned to see a Korgan mercenary, his face scarred from countless battles. The alien's eyes gleamed with cruel interest. 7,000, called another bidder, a human in expensive clothes who looked like he dealt in darker trades than simple smuggling. The Zephyrian woman's eyes grew wide with fear as the bidding continued. Marcus found himself stepping forward before he fully realized what he was doing. 10,000, he said, his voice cutting through the noise. The crowd fell silent. 10,000 credits was more than many people saw in a year. The auction master's eyes lit up with greed. 15,000, the Korgan growled, glaring at Marcus. Marcus felt his wallet getting lighter with each bid, but he could not stop himself. The woman's eyes held his, and he saw something there that reminded him of his sister, who had died in the war. The same courage, the same refusal to give up hope even in the darkest moment. 20,000, Marcus said firmly. The Korgan started to speak, then looked at Marcus more carefully. The human was not large, but he carried himself like a soldier. More importantly, he had the look of someone who had nothing left to lose. The alien decided the woman was not worth a fight. 20,000 credits to the human, the auction master announced. Sold! Marcus felt his legs shake as he realized what he had just done. 20,000 credits was everything he had saved, plus money he would have to borrow against his ship. He had just bought another person, something that went against everything he believed in. But as he approached the cage and the energy shackles dissolved, freeing the Zephyrian woman, he knew he had made the right choice. She stepped out of the cage with grace, despite her obvious exhaustion. "Thank you," she said simply, her voice soft now that she was close to him. "I am Lyra Vex of the Zephyrian Republic." "Or what used to be the Republic." "Marcus Kane," he replied, not sure what else to say. "I have a ship. We should leave." She nodded, following him through the crowd. Marcus noticed how she moved, alert and ready for danger. Whatever her people were, they were not prey animals. As they walked toward the docking bay, he wondered what he had gotten himself into. The Star Wanderer was not much to look at. A converted cargo hauler with enough firepower to discourage pirates, but not enough to fight a real battle. Marcus led Lyra aboard and sealed the hatch behind them. "The guest quarters are through there," he said, pointing down a corridor. "You can rest, eat, whatever you need. We'll be leaving as soon as I finish the pre-flight checks." Lyra looked around the ship's interior with interest. "This is your vessel? You travel alone?" "Usually," Marcus replied. "It's easier that way." She nodded as if she understood. "Where will you take me?" The question caught Marcus off guard. In his rush to free her, he had not thought about what came next. "I don't know," he admitted. "Where do you want to go?" "Anywhere but here," she said with a sad smile. "My world is gone, my people scattered. I have no home to return to." Marcus felt something twist in his chest. He recognized the look in her eyes because he had seen it in his own mirror. They were both refugees from lost worlds, trying to find their place in a galaxy that seemed determined to grind them down. "You can stay on the ship," he found himself saying, "if you want. I could use the help, and it's better than being alone." Lyra's eyes widened with surprise. "You would trust me? You know nothing about me." "I know enough," Marcus said. "I know you stood up to that crowd when you could have stayed silent. I know you looked me in the eye when you made your offer. That tells me what kind of person you are." She was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. "My people have a saying," she said finally. "The chains that bind the body are nothing compared to the chains that bind the heart. You have freed me from both." Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. "I just did what was right." "No," Lyra said firmly. "You did what was brave. Most people would have walked away." As the Star Wanderer lifted off from Carathis Prime, Marcus found himself wondering what his life was going to look like now. He had spent so many years alone, focused only on survival and the next job. Now he had someone depending on him, someone who had offered to give him children, to fight beside him. The thought should have terrified him, but instead, he felt something he had not experienced in years. Hope. Maybe there was more to life than just surviving. Maybe there was a reason he had been drawn to that auction, a reason he had spent everything he had to free a stranger dot in the passenger compartment. Lyra sat looking out at the stars. She touched her throat where the slave collar had been, still hardly believing she was free. The human, Marcus, had risked everything to save her. She had made her offer out of desperation, but now she found herself wondering if fate had brought them together. Her people were warriors, but they were also partners. Zephyrian couples fought together, lived together, built their lives as a team. She had seen something in Marcus's eyes that made her think he might understand that kind of partnership. Time would tell if her instincts were right. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying them away from Carathis Prime and toward an uncertain future. Both Marcus and Lyra felt the same thing. For the first time in years, they were not alone. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Asterisk. The bond of freedom 3 weeks had passed since Marcus freed Lyra from the slave market, and life aboard the Star Wanderer had settled into a routine. Lyra had proven herself incredibly useful, her quick mind grasping the ship's systems faster than Marcus had expected. She had also proven to be excellent company, filling the long hours of hyperspace travel with stories of her homeworld and its people. Marcus learned that Zephyria had been a world of warrior scholars, where combat and learning were considered equal virtues. The Zephyrians had been peaceful, but when the Korgan Empire attacked, they had fought with a ferocity that surprised their enemies. Unfortunately, courage alone had not been enough to save them. "We held out for 3 years," Lyra told him one evening as they shared dinner in the ship's small galley. Every man, woman, and child fought, but they had too many ships, too many soldiers. In the end, they poisoned our atmosphere and forced us to surrender. Marcus felt anger burn in his chest. What happened to the survivors? Scattered across the galaxy, Lyra said, her voice heavy with grief. Some escaped, some were enslaved, some were killed. I was captured trying to evacuate a school full of children. I managed to get them to safety, but I was not so lucky. "You saved children," Marcus said quietly. "That's something to be proud of," Lyra smiled sadly. "My people believe that every child saved is a victory against darkness. Even if we lose everything else, as long as our children live, we have hope." The conversation was interrupted by an alarm from the bridge. Marcus jumped up, Lyra close behind him. The navigation computer was showing multiple contacts approaching fast. Too fast and too organized to be anything but trouble. "Pirates," Marcus growled, his hands flying over the controls. 3 ships coming out of hyperspace right on top of us. Lyra moved to the weapons console with practiced ease. "I can handle the guns if you can fly this thing." Marcus looked at her in surprise. "You know how to use military systems?" "I told you, my people are warriors," she replied with a grim smile. "Now show me what this ship can do." The first pirate ship opened fire, energy bolts streaking past the Star Wanderer's hull. Marcus threw the ship into a spinning dive, his hands dancing across the controls with the skill of someone who had learned to fly in combat. Lyra's response was immediate and deadly. The ship's twin laser cannons spoke in perfect sequence, stitching holes across the lead pirate's hull. The enemy ship staggered, venting atmosphere. "Good shooting," Marcus said, pulling the ship around for another pass. "I am just getting started," Lyra replied, her fingers moving over the targeting computer with deadly precision. The second pirate ship tried to flank them, but Marcus was ready. He rolled the Star Wanderer inverted and dove toward the third ship, using it as cover. Lyra fired through the gap, her shots finding the engines of the flanking pirate. "2 down," she reported, her voice calm despite the chaos around them. Last pirate ship was larger than the others, probably the command vessel. It opened fire with everything it had, energy bolts and missiles filling the space. Around the Star Wanderer, Marcus felt the ship shudder as something hit the rear shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge, and he could smell something burning. They needed to end this fast. "Can you take out their weapons?" he asked Lyra. "Give me a clean shot," she replied, her eyes never leaving the targeting screen. Marcus pulled the ship into a sharp turn, ignoring the protests from the engines. The pirate ship followed, trying to keep them in its sights. At the last second, Marcus cut the engines and reversed thrust, letting the enemy ship overshoot. Lyra did not waste the opportunity. Her shots were precise and devastating, taking out the pirates' weapon systems one by one. The enemy ship, suddenly helpless, tried to flee. "Let them go," Marcus said, his hands steady on the controls. "They can spread the word that the star Wanderer is not easy prey." As the pirate ship disappeared into hyperspace, Marcus and Lyra looked at each other. They had fought together like a team that had been working together for years, not weeks. "We make a good team," Marcus said, a smile spreading across his face. "We do," Lyra agreed. "On my world, we have a word for such partnerships, kyanth. It means two who fight as one." Marcus felt something stir in his chest. "Is that what we are?" Lyra was quiet for a moment, her purple eyes studying his face. "I think we might be," she said softly. The next few days passed quietly as they made repairs and continued their journey. Marcus had taken a contract to deliver medical supplies to a frontier colony, honest work that paid well. As they traveled, he found himself watching Lyra more and more. She was beautiful, but it was more than that. She moved with a grace that spoke of years of training, but her touch was gentle when she helped with repairs. She was fierce in battle, but kind in conversation. She was everything he had never dared to hope for in a partner. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He was falling in love with her. The colony of New Eden was a typical frontier settlement, a collection of prefabricated buildings surrounded by farms carved out of alien soil. The colonists were grateful for the medical supplies, especially the antibiotics that would help them fight the local bacteria as they prepared to leave. The colony's doctor, Elena Vasquez, approached them. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and hands that had seen too much suffering. "I wanted to thank you both," she said. "These supplies will save lives." "Just doing our job," Marcus replied, but the doctor shook her head. "No, it's more than that. I can tell you're good people. If you ever need anything, medical attention, supplies, whatever, you come find me." As they walked back to the ship, Lyra was quiet. Marcus noticed she kept touching her stomach, a small gesture that made him wonder. "Are you feeling all right?" he asked. Lyra stopped walking and turned to face him. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears, but she was smiling. "Marcus," she said softly, "I need to tell you something. I am pregnant." The words hit him like a meteor. "Pregnant? Are you sure?" "I am sure," she said, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. "Zephyrian women know very early. The child is yours, Marcus." Our child. Marcus felt his knees go weak. A child. He was going to be a father. The thought terrified and thrilled him in equal measure. "How do you feel about it?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra stepped closer, her hand reaching up to touch his face. "I feel like the luckiest woman in the galaxy. I offered to give you children when I was desperate and afraid. Now I carry your child because I love you." Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. "I love you too," he said, the words coming easier than he had expected. "I have for weeks, but I was afraid to say it." They held each other in the shadow of the Star Wanderer, two refugees from destroyed worlds who had found something precious. In each other, a future, a family, a reason to keep fighting. "What do we do now?" Marcus asked. Lyra smiled, and for the first time since he had met her, it was a smile without shadows. "We build a life together. We raise our child in freedom. And maybe we help other people find their freedom too." Marcus thought about the slaves they had seen on Carathis Prime, the broken beings in cages waiting to be sold. He thought about the pirates who preyed on the weak, the corrupt officials who looked the other way, the whole system that ground people down and threw them away. "You want to fight them," he said. It was not a question. "I want to break their chains," Lyra replied. "All of them. Every slave, every prisoner, every person who has been told they are property. I want to give them what you gave me." Marcus looked at his ship, his home, his future. It was not much, but it was theirs. And maybe With time and effort and a lot of luck, they could make it into something more. Something that would make the galaxy a little bit brighter. Then that's what we'll do, he said, pulling Lyra close. We'll be freedom fighters. We'll be the people who come when no one else will. As they stood there planning their future, neither of them noticed the small figure watching from the shadows. Dr. Vasquez had followed them, concerned about Lyra's condition. What she had heard made her smile. The galaxy was about to become a very dangerous place for slavers and pirates. Marcus Kane and Lyra Vex were going to make sure of that. 3 months later, the first stories began to spread. A human and a Zephyrian in a converted cargo ship, striking at slave markets and pirate bases. They called themselves the Free Stars, and they were making enemies of all the right people. But that is a story for another day. For now, Marcus and Lyra had found what they had both been searching for without knowing it. Love, purpose, and the promise of a better tomorrow. In the depths of space, aboard the Star Wanderer, they planned their next mission. There were chains to break, and they intended to break them all. Asterisk.